I am good at what I do. I have been successful, and that journey, the first 44 years, had taught me a lot of who I was, but I never accepted that I was good enough. This new phase, this is what I have to try to redefine.
The lessons you're going to learn firsthand will apply to anybody in different areas of their own pursuits. All right, welcome to another episode of the next episode. Don't know which camera we're going to go with, so we'll look at both of them. And we're 6 months in, so figured it'd be a good time to do a check-in with you. I will command the mic this time to see how things are going, what you've learned, and how the first 6 months of your encore have been. So
Okay.
we'll hop right into it and just ask.
Well, before you jump into the questions, just one quick intro as such. Since you've got me focusing on watching the signs, angel numbers, being more positive, throwing things out there. When we went out east, to visit with your grandma and aunts and uncles, a couple of numbers kept coming up. Well, actually, the second number has been coming up for a number of years, never focused on it. But one number while we were in New Jersey and New York kept coming up different times, receipts, time, little things that I were reading. 1111 kept coming up. That was 10 days that we were gone.
Mm-hmm.
And when I looked that up, it was associated with a master number within the angel numbers. It has a deep connection to the energy and vibrations of the universe that you keep, amplifying and focusing on. And that master number and that focus was to say, hey, it's confirmation that everything is on schedule and being divinely guided at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, oh, that's kind of a nice little sign, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then throw that together with this other number. As I said, it's been coming up for years, but didn't really pay attention to it because it was always like time of day. 3:30 in the morning for me was always like 3:30 in the morning, and still today.
Mm-hmm.
Most times I just kind of wake up at 3:30. But when I saw that 1111, looked that up, I kept thinking, well, even when we're on vacation, it was like 3:30. And I kept thinking, okay, what's 3:30 about? And it was a note that, the angels are kind of congratulating you on your success and what you've achieved so far in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And know that everything is kind of all right and you're on the right path right now. So I kept putting those two together, the timing of when I focused on those or when they came into my focus. And again, from our talks in the next episode, and went, okay, here's another one of these signs.
I think if you'd already known years ago what 3:30 meant.
Exactly. Well, I did, but with the focus then was like 3:30 I read was kind of like a moment when you were being visited. Someone was kind of coming back and visiting with you, or it was a time when creators are their most creative. It was like 3:30 in the morning. Authors, artists, musicians. So that's what I focused on. I was like, okay, someone's visiting me, or not that I was focusing so much on being a creator at that point in time, but this connection or this definition I found, in connection with the 1111, where we were at in this journey of the encore and the pursuit. Liked how I threw in pursuit there for you.
Thank you.
Always got to give a plug. So I just wanted to interject there because, again, like you said, this is kind of a checkpoint for us. So I thought, well, it's telling me everything's on track. I'm in the right direction, being divinely guided. Settle in and just enjoy where I'm at this point forward. So back to you, Jay. I just want to throw that in because it seemed like a good beginning for us today.
No, it definitely was good. There's a video I have to try to find. I think I've shared it in a past episode of the Weekly Pursuit. I forget who the guy is, but he is talking about how it's 3:40 or a specific time around 3:30 every morning. That's when there's a connection between the universe and higher being, and that's when you should wake up and do some work. But the only I saw the video, I watched it, I noted it, but I didn't do any research to see is it 3:30 in your time zone, or is it 3:30 in somebody else's time zone, and how does that work, type of thing. But it's interesting that I'll have to try to find that video and share that on social media, just referencing it in the future, maybe plugging it in the show notes as well if I can find it. So I think it's a good intro because it showed something that you've learned over the last 6 months. But so far, how has your encore been?
It's been good. Very interesting. Obviously, for those of you that may be watching or listening for the first time, this is episode 9 for us. So we've had a series over this past 6 months, and if you did listen in or view our past episodes of this encore, and again, just to reference, encore is what I'm titling not being retirement but being encore. As Jay knows, it's been very interesting for me. I'll say a bit, ebb and flow, because I've had better moments and others where I was falling victim to my own self of thinking too much, analyzing too much, and being a little fearful of where I was going. However, considering that ebb and flow, the shakiness from time to time, it's been quite good. Very eye-opening and very, very challenging. I know you don't like the word challenge to be used, but I'm still using that because there's a positive to it in that it has focused me into settling in, which is what I've been doing. Much better today than I was, let's say February, give me the month of January when I started this phase to just, be okay with everything. So it's been good. Obviously, as we've talked about, I've, been staying current with reading right now it's just a book a month. So I've had a nice journey in various books, many of which Justin's given to me to kind of get me more focused, but they've been very good books to focus in on, and others that have been given to me. So staying good with that item. Obviously, looking into and settling into the whole social aspect of this world. We spoke to, in a previous episode, I think it was 6, where we talked about the social network getting smaller, being outside of having that deluge of contacts from being in work and having that all around you. Enjoying the day, settling into doing that more, and looking to manifest what we talked about in our last episode of the moment. And now beginning your beta group session, the collective. Just giving you another plug.
The best plugs are ones you don't point out, just so you know.
Okay. Well, for those joining in, this is a new one for him outside of the pursuit, the collective. So our one group session that we had and our one-on-one yesterday has been quite good for me to get a little more settled with the whole purpose thing, because we've talked about how it's important in this phase of life to remain, going after and seeking that purpose and redefining ourselves. So I think it's good, Jay. It's been real good for me. Mom and I are, making some good adjustments for ourselves and trying to, still allow Mom to have her little separation of time with me not being around 24/7 all the time on her. So coming into the office with you and Darlene, several days a week or doing things allows me to get out and give Mom her space. So that's a little better and such. So we're making that good adjustment. So this is a good time of life. It really is. And for those transitioning in, I will only say and share with you my experience of 6 months is to do what Justin's always been telling me, and we all know what we should be doing, and that is just relax and go with each day. That I think is my biggest lesson of being more relaxed and going with each day rather than planning it out.
And even relaxing to the standpoint of it's okay to sit and do nothing. So as I was getting the cameras and everything ready, he's standing up trying to find something to do. And I'm just like, there's nothing you need to do. Just sit there and just be. You don't need to be doing something. You don't need to be moving or be helping. I know that's the Italian in you. You've got to be doing something. But even to that standpoint, just being able to let somebody else take care of what needs to be done. And you don't have to do it.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, Jay, to recognize in this phase of realizing that you don't have to be doing something all the time, that it's okay not to be busy. Again, moving out of a very robust, time-sensitive day when you're working full time, and especially corporate America, where you're all over the place and too many things being juggled, as well as trying to do what's necessary around the house and with family. It is difficult if you're sitting there, and you look at things and you're sitting there for a half hour and you're like, okay, what do I do now? Where you didn't have that before. That I need to separate and say, that's okay not to be doing anything for a half hour, and that's not going to be disruptive. It's not wasted time. So
you mentioned there were some challenges. Like what were some of the challenges, and then how did you overcome them? Not all of them, but how did you overcome them?
I think the biggest challenge is the time management. We addressed that back in, I think it was like maybe 4. Again, the time management, just knowing that you can just kind of have your day, not worry about it from day to day. You may have some set scheduled time in each day, which I think is still very important, to have a little bit of structure in your day, to have some things set to make sure that you're moving forward and doing some positive things throughout your day. But just that idea of not worrying about it, and what do you do with that time? So that was a little bit of adjustment, just understanding that that's a good thing to not have that. And the other piece is the whole social aspect. Going from a day where you're surrounded by all kinds of people through meetings, conference calls, being in the office, and having that all around you to dictate your day and have the social interaction, to now having that removed and only having 1 or 2 people that you're interacting with at a time. Even though going to the gym for Mom and I still happens on a daily basis, we're no longer going to our once neighborhood gym, because that kind of changed and closed and now reopened since the pandemic, where it was really a social visit as well, because it's a local neighborhood gym. We knew lots of people there, whereas now we're at a gym and it's just it's a boutique franchise type gym, so everybody's just in there. No one really interacts with one another, so you just go in, do your workout, and get out. So not having that social active network is a tough adjustment and challenge.
What gym are you going to?
It's Planet Fitness.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean it's a very nice facility.
You don't need to plug in. I just was curious.
It's good, but like I said,
get pizza on the way out?
No. Although one of our good pizza places is right there. But again, when we were going to the neighborhood gym, knowing a lot of people, when you're working out, you're stopping and talking with just about everybody else that was in there, and everybody knew you, kind of like a Cheers type thing, right? You walk in and there's everybody there. So those are the two biggest. And I think where that then leads to is, I was reading some article about the great resignation is turning into the great regret. And in it talks about the several key elements that people are regretting their leaving work. I don't see those as regrets, but the biggest elements that are there is, like people were saying, they're now lost. They now have given up their identity that they've built over years. Another one was they missed the work. Well, yeah, I can say I missed the work a little bit, but certainly not all of the humdrum and all of the fanfare and drama of a corporate life. And the other piece was the not being seen. So if I throw in being lost, not being seen, and then losing their identity that you've built over the years, I can see that was a challenge, and it is a challenge for those of us transitioning to this phase. But also I look at it as saying, well, that to me means that everybody defined their life based on work.
Yeah, they were lost.
They were lost.
They were already lost. They just didn't know it.
Right. And I admittedly, I was the same way, right? My identity was built by everything I did over those 44 years, and a lot of great things came about in different positions and different activity I had in the industry. So I too, in the early months, felt that way. And we talked about it, both in previous episodes or just among our conversations. But now I see that is true, that if you're still feeling that way, then you're not taking advantage of this wonderful time of life. And so now for me, even though I still talk about needing to find the purpose, needing to stay socially active, those are just basic human needs. But now they are more to myself, and building those out to be more for me. And as we've talked yesterday in our one-on-one session, if I do that for me, then everything else in my life, including Mom and I's relationship, my relationship with you and Kristen and the family and the grandkids and everybody, is just going to be even better over time. And if I'm relaxed, I'm confident, then everything else will just take care of itself. So those are the two aspects. And obviously there's a couple others, but I think for today, those are the two big ones that we all have to be concerned with in transitioning. And not only for our viewers and listeners, not only those of you transitioning into this phase, our encore phase, but if anyone else is transitioning from a job to a new job, or one office to another, or transitioning from corporate to an entrepreneurship. I think those things will still come to play, and you need to work through them quickly, and then recognize that the reason you're at your next phase is because of the betterment of you and what you gain by being in this encore phase of your life.
All right, so we know what the challenges were and how you kind of overcame those couple big ones. What went better than you expected to go?
Oh, good. That's a very good question. I think what has gone better is just the huge relief that I knew would come from not being, if you would, employed and being a part of corporate America. But I think what went better is how quickly I released myself, or gave myself permission to release from that commitment to my past. I think we did talk early on where I was like, okay, I had to kind of go back and reflect, and what were my accomplishments, what were my successes. But I was surprised how quickly after I did that, how quickly I did just kind of, you would walk away from that. And although I think about, again, the people from my my job at Gallagher, and my teammates and others that I was close to there, again, I do miss them a lot in our interaction and the good work that we were doing, but I don't miss that corporate piece of it, and how relaxed I was and am today with not worrying about that any longer. And as you know, I have a tendency to kind of hold on to those longer than I should. So the real relief to me has been how quickly I resolved myself from that, and no need to have that, and now for me to look forward.
And to follow up on that is, what have you learned about yourself over the last 6 months?
I've learned that, I'm me, and my strengths are the fact that I care so much about my role in those that are most important to me, my family and close friends, and that I am good at what I do. I have been successful, and that journey, the first 44 years, had taught me a lot of who I was, but I never accepted that I was good enough. So now I feel I am good enough. I did have a lot of accomplishments and successes, some of which I never would have thought to have achieved. Not to digress too far, but thinking about coming from our small town in Midland, PA, the small steel town, having a wonderful life that we have, but looking to better myself. What my dad did for me to put me in a position to do that, and all that Uncle John and Aunt Joyce and others have done for me through the years to help me get there. That was always something that I felt, I don't know that I deserved all that, but now I feel like you do deserve all that. And you are a better person than you're giving yourself credit for. And you do need to just be satisfied with that, and recognize, as the angel numbers were telling me, that you have accomplished a lot. And to be settled with that. And who I am will always be who I am, and that is someone that's always going to care for my loved ones, and still put people a little bit ahead of myself. But recognizing when I put someone a little bit ahead of myself, it's more for the fact that I know that I can help them, rather than doing so to just feel like I need to do it, if that makes any sense.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a server's mentality. Like, to serve people is different than putting people ahead of yourself too much. Like, yes, to take care of somebody and serve them and help them and move them forward is putting them in front of you, but it's not sacrificing yourself. Like, putting yourself first, to making sure you're taking care of yourself, making sure you're happy, so then you can go serve other people and be better for them. Right. And I just think that, I think if, like, I'm not trained to be able to do this, but I think if you did a deep dive as to why you never felt like you were good enough for the things that you earned, like, there's something, like, you're trying, you were trying to meet somebody else's definition of success. Whose it was, like, that's for the psychologist to come in or the mushroom trip to help you figure out. But like, I think that like we need to define our own success and not worry about what other people's definition of success is, because we're creating our own life. There's all these distractions and all these outside influences, but at the end of the day, those don't really matter to our life and to our happiness and to our definition of success. So, like, hopefully through your story, somebody watching or listening is able to realize that they're trying to meet other people's levels of success. They haven't defined success for themselves. And I really, truly believe that if you define your own level of success and you meet those levels of success, like, good things are going to happen. Like, yes, there's people who are lazy and are going to take shortcuts, but I think most of us want to do good, and we want to do good in our own eyes. It's when we are trying to do good in the eyes of others that makes it hard for us. And that's where we feel like, as we hit these accomplishments, well, yeah, I earned this, but I should have got that. Well, who says you needed to get that? Was it you or was it somebody else? And I think that's the root of what causes so much frustration, unhappiness, lack of identity, is we're not living the life that we're supposed to be living. We're living the life to the constraints of other people. So,
well, I know why. For me, I was always, trying to be successful for somebody else. That truly is, as I know, what I've always been about a little bit. And truthfully, Jay, all of that was to make, my father, my grandparents, Uncle John, Uncle Ray, some of the individuals, Jim, who, was my first boss when I started working, many years ago. Lori, my last boss, all those people who were influential throughout my life. And more importantly than those folks was for Mom and you and Kristen. So for me, trying to make sure that I was successful or reaching those accomplishments, even though I was doing it for me, because as I was growing, right, those were coming from me, it is true that I had it flipped in that it was more making sure that I was being successful for all of the people I mentioned and others. I don't mean to exclude anybody, because there's been so many people I've been blessed with throughout my life that have helped me along the way.
No one's going to feel jaded by it. If they do, forget them. Like,
I know, but I'm just saying, so for me, yes, I know that I've always been trying to prove my success and my accomplishments were a little bit for somebody else. Again, kind of the fact that when I was coming up, this is the way things developed. But yeah, along the way, when I did reach those levels of success, like I've told you before, I never thought, that I would have what I have today. That, we lived this long in Indianapolis, that we had the experiences we did, if you would, growing up as a family, some of the vacations that we took, the current home and neighborhood that we're living in and have lived for a while, the successes that you and Kristen have been able to achieve by some of the things that we've done for you. Yeah, that's up, all of what was driving me. And even though that was my drive, those successes I knew about and felt good about. Admittedly, I felt better about it when I was younger. When I was in the 20s and 30s and early 40s, when I'll say, all the things were happening in that, we'll say, Hollywood sort of framework of my life, of getting the good job, having the great positions, being a part of the industry, chairing those committees, doing some speaking, being in conferences, seeing, great cities. We, as a family, had great opportunities and, small, long weekend vacations from me going to some of those conferences and you guys coming in for the weekend. I mean, those were all wonderful, but you're right, Jay. My definition in handling that was more for others rather than me. So I know that. Would I have been better if I kind of just flipped it a little bit and driven myself more from that? No doubt. But I don't feel guilty any longer. And so back to what has worked for me now in this phase, that recognition that part of my life, the corporate career life, was indeed just that, a part of my life. and now where we're at and transitioning to this part of my life, our life, it's for a better purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's more now for me. So for those of us transitioning to this phase of life, the encore phase, or for those when you make the change to a different career or different company, I think this phase needs to be one where you really are defining that for you first, and then allowing everything else just kind of benefit from it, rather than working for everybody else to benefit from it, and you just get the recognition of those successes along the way. So just flip it so that this phase is more for you, and allow everything else to just benefit, is I think where we're at.
I don't think it's just the encore phase. I think it's every phase.
Yeah,
but that's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good stopping point. We'll do. I want to do a part 2. So I didn't know we would get so far down on some of these topics. I should have known better. So we'll do a part 2 because I know you have some more notes that you typed up, even though I didn't tell you anything we're going to talk about. But in part 2, I want to talk about any summarizing stuff to what you've learned about yourself and can we talk about today. But then, like, what do you have for the next 6 months? And then what do you have, like, for the next year beyond? And then how do you define success for you over those time frames?
Okay.
And then anything else you want to contribute. So we'll come back, hopefully later this week or early next week, record part 2. So that'll come out as the second part. Because I'm not Joe Rogan. I'm not that famous. I can't keep people's attention for 3 hours. So plus I have a meeting with
somebody more important than this guest here.
Well, yes, clients are more important.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But I know. So we'll come back part 2. We'll keep building on this conversation, but I think it's helpful. I know you've got your little quote you want to take us out with, so I'll let you end the episode so you can read your quote.
All right, and this time I'll get it right.
Yeah,
this time I'll make sure I get it right. So, again, thank you all for joining, Justin and I again. As always, it's our pleasure and my pleasure, and this is very helpful to me in many ways. So again, to close out, beyond the thanks to all of you, is just remember, never quit searching, never settle, and never stop seeking your greater purpose. So make the most of these days, and we'll see you next time around on the next episode. Take care.